All right. So a beat drop is essentially just like an introduction to seemingly unrelated topics that we're going to put together into a new type of combined narrative. It's really just meant to be an introduction to different places where people can get information for themselves to form their own perspective. And it really just takes people through a series of 9 different posts that form the overall perspective. So this is just one beat drop that is connected to the hold on, multiple verses 1, like the first multiple verse, which is the universe for Hue 3 agency. MV0 is just our reality here. LP0 is the first of 9 LPs that make up the universe. EP1 is the first story. So 2020 Vision was a story we came up with at the beginning of 2020 when things started like getting a little weird. And so like this is a shared plot line, 2020 Vision. And even though there are 9 different LPs, 9 different parallel universes, they all share this same plot line. And the concept behind that is similar to how we think MV0, our actual reality here, that's how we think MV0 actually operates. We have every single person is their own universe, a parallel universe. And we just have to get on board and understand that there is an ongoing narrative story that we are all living through, even though we're telling it differently. So this is kind of like just like one example. 2020 Vision is just one way for us to look at this. But the idea here is that if more and more people create beat drops, and if they allow their beat drops to turn into an actual LP for themselves or an actual metaverse for what they want to create, then we can all start to view things a little bit more open-minded and not expect everyone to fall in line with a shared narrative, because we have to understand that we're all living in different universes. So for an example, this is first beat drop that really introduces LP0, polymath process. And each beat drop is kind of constructed in the same way. It has an aspect of autodidactism, and this is just how people are going to teach themselves about a system within the human body. Autodidact is like how people teach themselves. We all are self-taught. Throughout school, the teachers who have given us information have just given us information and presented us with information. But really, once it gets into your mind, you have to make the connections for yourself. We do teach one another. We provide each other with information, but we have to ultimately learn for ourselves. That's why we have homework. That's why we read on our own. That's why we watch documentaries. We can teach ourselves anything we want. We don't have to go to school to learn whatever we want. Autodidactism is the fundamental aspect of everything we're doing with beat drops, everything we're doing with Hue 3 agency, and everything we hope other people will create when they create their own metaverses with this system. So for this beat drop, autodidactism, we're going to be looking at blood in human physiology. That's what we're going to be trying to teach ourselves with for polymath process, LP0. The other aspect is biomimicry. So biomimicry is developing science and engineering design solutions based on natural systems. So the natural system that we're going to be looking at is water. So really we're going to be equating the blood in our bodies to the water that runs through our bodies and also just like runs through all life on Earth, like the fuel for life on Earth. And we're going to be learning about our blood, and we're going to be learning about water so that we can develop our data institutions. That's ego development. Ego development is really just, it's kind of a way for people to track how well they actually understand themselves and how mature they are in their development to be able to separate themselves with their own persona. Every person has a persona. Every person has kind of like a mask that they wear. It makes them unique. It makes them beautiful. If every person was the same, if egos didn't exist, it would be a much more boring world. But the only issue that we see with ego is that we get really identified with them. And if that's the case, how can we develop our egos where we can, one, honor the fact that it's beautiful to have them, but also that if we get wrapped up in this persona, it can lead to a lot of issues for us. So just to recap, we're going to be teaching ourselves about blood in human physiology and like the role that it plays in keeping us healthy. We're going to be learning about water and how it keeps the planet healthy. And we're going to be using those two so we can really develop one of the planet's largest egos, which is our data institutions. Now we're choosing data institutions with blood and water because I see blood as a real way for us to move information around our bodies. Our DNA can be like blood getting in, transferring nutrients to our different cells, transferring oxygen, and removing waste from different aspects of our body allows for information to stay pure within our bodies. Water, if you look up water memory, which is an aspect of this beat drop, water is actually holding most of the data in the world. It locks in information. This is labeled as pseudoscience, which is fine, but I think it's important for us to start creating decentralized science experiments to see if we can move this from being pseudoscience to being mainstream science, and to show people that we don't have to just take what the mainstream narrative is of what true science is. We can create our own experiments, create our own metrics that scientists can verify or deny. And based on what they say, we can continue to tweak those metrics until it's undeniable. That's kind of the concept of this. So once you know what you're going to teach yourself about for human anatomy and physiology with autodidactism, once you know what you want to go into for biomimicry, just to learn more about the planet, and when you know what industry or aspect of society you want to develop through the lens of ego development, you also, just to make things more fun and give it an actual narrative, you choose a mythology that you want to equate things to. So within EP1 2020 Vision, for all of the 9 LPs, for all the 9 parallel universes, the underlying story is going to be from Plato's The Allegory of the Cave. Someone who leaves the predetermined and set reality that everyone acknowledges as the truth, sees a lot more and learns a lot more about what's actually going on, but then decides to come back and tell the people that they care about what they learned, but understanding that it's not that easy. It takes compassion to understand that everyone is at different places in their own ego development. People just have different interests, and it's not really anyone's job to save everyone else. Everyone just needs to be presented with information and make decisions based on how they want to form their own universe. And that's kind of like the general theme of 2020 Vision. Now, that's just the premise. These 4 outer circles are just to kind of like set the tone, set the plot of this beat drop. Now, it's made up of 9 different posts or 9 different subjects. The first one is beat 0, which is a quote. And in this, the quote is going to be coming from The Polymath. It's a book that just talks about how every person is a polymath. And it seems really relevant for this because blood is something that is it runs throughout our entire bodies, and it kind of allows us to adapt into different situations. Water, element that is able to operate as a solid, liquid, and a gas. Something that is able to take on the characteristics of anything that it's in, because it is a liquid. I mean, blood is the same. And something that, again, if we look at some of these Dr. Masaru Emoto experiments, it takes on the qualities of the consciousness that's around it. Water really does seem like one of the biggest polymaths out there. And also data institutions. Data can be manipulated. Data can be tweaked for people who want to use it in a certain way. Data is very much a polymath. The exact same type of data can be used to prove points on either ends of any argument. And it's important for people to understand that. So as we understand what a polymath is, it can kind of change how we view things throughout society. So that beat 0 is a quote, and it's going to be coming from The Polymath. And this is really just an introduction again. So after this introduction, any person who has this book can be like, also share this, also add this quote, and it'll just keep adding on layers and layers and layers and layers and layers to this same beat drop. This is just going to be laying down the foundation of, okay, these are the 9 different areas that make up this beat drop, and as people want to add on to it, it'll just make the beat drop stronger. So once we do this, it kicks things off, and then people are able to continuously add an infinite number of quotes. People can just add single words from the book if they want, but it wouldn't be a very powerful quote, but they could essentially do that. So that's how that kind of works. So that's beat 0 quote. For beat 1 meme, this is related to like memes that are going to be kind of replacing the education system. And with this, we want to use video content and quotes from Dr. Masaru Emoto's experiments to teach people about the scientific process and teach people about water memory. Beat 2 is for videos. That's what this circle's for. And from this, it's really going to be, how can we transform and replace mass media with something that's a little bit more decentralized? So it's going to be drawing from a lot of documentaries and podcasts. This one's going to be coming from the Homesick Alien Club, and it's going to be multiple quotes and clips from the conversation with Chelsea Diane, The Sacred Path of Creativity. Next up in the beat drop is going to be beat 3 now. And beat 3 now is like the essential ad campaign for any beat drop. This is really where the meat of it comes from, because this is how it's going to be pushed out to the masses to introduce people to the beat drop. And for this, it's really like beat 3 now is meant to be like the 3 breaths at 3 aspect of any beat drop. So it's really centered around meditation. It's centered around presence, and it's also centered around around the shadow. This is meant to be how you raise awareness for your beat drop. Beat 4 is creativity. So it's beat 4 create. So this is what we want to create from this beat drop. It would be amazing for the polymath process if we can create an actual book, an actual journal, so people would be able to get a book with these outlines that they can fill in for themselves. We can sell them. It'd be awesome to make them with hemp paper, and it'd be awesome to use the proceeds to support Trees for the Future and reforestation efforts, or ecosia, whatever we want to do. So that's beat 4. That's like the heart of it. Is like the creativity. And like, again, beat 3 now is just kind of like, that's like the solar plexus. So that's like the fuel, but this again is like the heart of it. Beat 5 plan is really getting into urban planning. So how do we want to change society with this same concept? And with this, the thing that we'll be creating with our decentralized autonomous organization is a long play beat number database. And that's going to be a database that gives people the ability to track the different quotes, the different memes, the different videos that people are sharing in a single database that anyone can access. So a way for us to organize the information that we're all teaching ourselves with, so others can create their own curriculums for themselves. So that's going to be the main thing that we create for like the community with this. It's kind of like something that's a little more technical. It's all digital. We also want to have beat 5 plans should also have a goal that is going to be tangible in the real world. The fact that we're going to be learning about water, I want to create a giant bubble generator. It could be something like, and again, it's just going to be like the same way that Elon Musk suggested the Hyperloop, and then different colleges and different teams were creating experiments for it. That's all this is meant to be. Is a giant bubble generator possible? Can we use carbon capture fans to blow giant bubbles and teach people how to calculate the surface area of a sphere, how to teach people about how to calculate the volume of a sphere and surface tension of a bubble and how it actually works? That's like all the types of things that we can learn from creating something that would look awesome, like a 50-foot diameter bubble. It'd be awesome. So yeah, that's beat 5 plan. For beat 6 test or beat 6 question, not sure exactly what the hashtag is going to be. I think it's going to stay question, but this is where we're really going to be focused on the science institutions. And with this, like, I think we should be making a decentralized science experiment that's going to be fun for people. So how can we create simple science experiments around cymatics? How can we show how different vibrations, different frequencies affect water? Because then this can get into us tuning music to different frequencies that would actually help the human nervous system and help people calm down, teach people about binaural beats and other like sound therapies, and question why things like, there are theories that the pyramids were built to create a certain resonance that could help heal people. Albert Einstein thought that frequency was going to be a very big part of medicine. All of these, just like a simple science experiment to get people excited about how different shapes are made, could lead to so many different things and different careers that people don't even know that they're interested in. That's the point of this aspect of any beat drop. It's like, can we create something that other people are really excited about and we didn't know was possible? Maybe. The next one, beat 7 myth. This is really the biggest part where this mythology theme comes into play, because we're going to be making short little comic books. You know, like the Sunday paper always had comic strips. Every beat drop is going to be associated with a comic strip. So people can make a really rough draft of a sketch, and then we can get other artists to make it happen. But in this, so like for beat drop 0, and I think I might extend this to others as well, these are going to be the inspirations for it. So for beat drop 0, when we're trying to transform our data institutions, we're going to be using The Watchmen graphic novel, Calvin and Hobbes, and the Black Jacobins. So that is a new comic that I haven't really gotten into yet, but I just like the way that they present it with the Watchmen. Calvin and Hobbes was one of my favorites when I was a kid. And then the Black Jacobins is going into like the Haitian Revolution, the only successful slave revolt in history. I think if there are others, I'd love to know about them. I'm not saying this is like a definitive fact. That's just something that I've heard. But I want to use the Haitian Revolt to show that, I mean, in some ways we are kind of slaves to the data that we're presented with. We're not able to analyze it. We don't know how the algorithms of any of these companies who own all of our data work. So we don't know if we can't really test the biases. So let's turn each of us into watchmen, watchwomen who can go through with the love and lightheartedness and fun of Calvin and Hobbes to create a revolution for ourselves, for our own data. And this is the entertainment aspect of it. Ultimately, beatDrop. This is really like the overall vision of everything for this specific beat drop. And in this case, the vision of this beat drop is that water creates our polarization. We want to show that in really unique ways. I mean, if we dive into the molecular structure of water, all of its properties come from the fact that it's polarized. Polarization isn't necessarily a bad thing. Polarization is important in sexual relationships. Polarization is important in water mechanics, the thing that holds all life together. Polarization is important in politics because people need to be able to have very different viewpoints in order for us to come to anything that's somewhat close to a consensus. So this is just an intro to what any brand, any person can do with a beat drop. And again, this is a small sliver. If we were going to create one of these to fully encapsulate the 2020 vision story, this is just 1 out of 54. There's an entire spreadsheet that has a lot of content that really makes up the whole vision. But again, this is just 1 out of 54 beat drops that will tell the whole story. So that's going to be a lot of comic strips that come out. We're going to have 54 comic strips to introduce all these topics. And then again, once all these are introduced, people will be able to pull quotes, create their own memes. And all of these are just meant to be, this is just meant to be an intro, and then everyone else continuously adds content to it. So this is 1 out of 54, and then for each of these, there's an ever-growing number of things that people can do for any one of these circles. This is how a beat drop works. Once you link beat drops together, you get a short story. Once you link more of those short stories together, you get a full LP. So this is how people will be able to use memes and hashtags to build a story. And then once these are shared, any artist, any writer can cobble together different posts and make up stories of their own. Yeah, that's it.